Sasuke desperately tries to spend time with his daughter, and Namida cries. I know, it's a shock. Greetings, my friends. I hope you're ready for some ninja action. It's time to take a look at 2 episodes of Boruto Naruto Next Generations. If you have not watched these episodes, here's a spoiler warning. Go watch them, then come back to this review. Mostly I'm reviewing 2 because I didn't have an opportunity to watch last week's episode, and I have to say, the whole parent-child day arc was kind of disappointing in some senses, but I think that the strongest episodes were the ones that were devoted to the main characters. Naruto hanging out with his daughter Himawari in this episode, where Sarada finally gets some bonding time with Sasuke. I really enjoyed this episode, as again, it's so rare to actually see Sasuke hanging out with his family, and to see him actually have some one-on-one time with his daughter where things don't involve fighting is actually kind of refreshing. Although I have to say that most of this episode, watching Sasuke try to appeal to his daughter has got to be some of the most hilarious and cringy moments from the entire series. As while Sasuke is a very super cool character, he's not exactly the most social person in the world. A lot of the conflict in this episode desperately comes from the fact that Sarada does want to spend time with her father, but Sasuke doesn't quite know how to interact with her. It leads to a surprising amount of tension between these characters, as Sarada is a teenager, but she doesn't necessarily want to be treated like a child, but at the same time, she still wants to be loved by her parents. It's that weird sort of moment when you're going through adolescence where you start to go away from your parents, but Sarada's also one of those kids who's always been separated from her father for a long time, so you can definitely see the conflict, and rather than, of course, just outright talking, they decide to just end up getting on each other's nerves. But what I love about Sasuke is that throughout the course of the entire episode, he desperately wants to help his daughter. He wants to build a stronger relationship with her, and a lot of the advice he gets is from Kakashi, which leads to some of the funniest moments that he's had from the series, like watching him dress up as Sasuke and Sakura. The episode did a good job of highlighting that while Kakashi is a very wise individual, he also has a lot of weird quirks. He's still something of a pervert, and a lot of his advice usually just ends up going over the head of Sasuke, which of course leads to a lot of hilarity. Although one thing about the Naruto series that I've always liked is that they always use the past as a tentpole for the current storytelling, and that's what Sasuke actually does. He reflects on his past, his relationship with his father, his relationship with his brother, and he's able to bring that in and sort of use it as a way to connect with his daughter. By the end of the episode, we get to see that they actually do some shuriken training with one another, and they finally find some common ground. I really loved this moment as it was highly reminiscent of Sasuke training with his brother Itachi, with Sarada using her shuriken to try and hit a target, and it constantly getting deflected by another shuriken, Sasuke's in particular, and she actually ends up getting to learn a lot from him, and a lot of that is simply through the form of action. Actions always speak louder than words, and I have to say that this moment featured a very loving moment between these 2 characters, which just put a big smile on my face. It's cheesy, and you can almost like hear the Full House crowd going, "Aww!" And thus, the Child Parent Day arc does come to a close, and everything's wrapped up really nicely as we get a big montage scene of seeing all of the parents and children interacting with one another, the things that we've actually seen before. Even Boruto finally bonding with his father a little bit. Even after this long day of spending time with his daughter, Naruto still decides to have a training session with his son. It's really heartfelt and honestly cheesy, but I really did like it, I have to admit. Also, there is one thread holding all of these episodes together, which I think is one of the funniest things ever, and that has got to be Shino. Shino has changed so much since the beginning of the series, before being very stoic and calm and frankly, kind of cool. But I have to say that the Boruto series is making Shino kind of lame, but they're doing it at least in a really funny way, like the fact that he's obsessed with a stuffed animal of Kurama, and throughout every single one of these episodes you get to see him doting on it like it's his very own child. They even punctuate the entire episode by ending a scene with him, which looks like something straight out of Looney Tunes. I have to say that Shino has changed a lot since the weird, creepy bug kid that he was at the beginning of the Naruto franchise. And in some ways it's a little jarring, but honestly it made me laugh, so points to you. The next episode of the series is one that I actually do have a few problems with, but for the most part, I actually thought that it was a pretty entertaining episode, focusing on Team Hanabi, in particular the member Namida, whose entire quirk seems to be that she cries a lot, but she does have a unique jutsu ability, being able to basically scream really loud, which, at the end of the day, doesn't really remind me of a ninja technique so much as it reminds me of like a superpower from My Hero Academia, but it still works for her character and manages to give her a little bit of distinctiveness. This entire episode is all about her trying to train and rein in her powers, as when they go on this mission, these bandits ambush them and these people that they're trying to protect, and while she is able to save everyone with her super loud voice, she does end up making everyone go completely deaf. So, the episode follows her as she goes through some very hardcore training, making the declaration that she is not going to cry anymore, and she's going to try and focus on other jutsu, in particular, water style, which basically transforms her into a motherfucking Squirtle. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I didn't think this is how water techniques work. I mean, we've actually seen people do this in the series where they're able to spit water out of their mouths, but I thought that you actually had to have some sort of, like, water source near you in order to happen. If I had to guess, they are magically using ninja powers to summon water from their bodies and fire it like a water hose. I don't know. Maybe they're just making up the rules as they go along. But the entire episode focuses on her trying to actually, like, utilize this technique, trying to make it stronger, and making it powerful enough to where it can actually knock over a log. And you can pretty much just insert Eye of the Tiger throughout this entire training sequence, and yeah, she does manage to make it happen. There's even some moments which are surprisingly well animated here, of watching her fight against Sumire and even Wasabi. Wasabi, again, I still love her design. I wish they would do more with her. The fact that she has cat-like abilities, which mostly just give her the power to scratch people in the face really bad, but I also love that Sumire was able to bring back the Nue in this episode, which starts out really small, but about, like, midway through the episode, it suddenly goes through a massive growth spurt and ends up turning into, like, the size of a freaking tiger. And it looks pretty awesome. I can't wait to see more of it as the future goes on, but like I said, most of the development here is devoted to Namida, and by the end of the episode, they go on another mission to protect people who are being attacked by this gang, the same gang as before, and of course, it leads to a confrontation where Namida has to try and control her abilities, and none of it really ends up working. Even though she has a brand new water technique, it doesn't do anything against these guys because they're all using water abilities. And eventually they all get trapped in quicksand, and that's when she's forced to cry and knock everybody out with her power. But this is the moment of the episode that was actually kind of surprising, as even though she was training water style, it actually ended up helping her in using her, like, crying and screaming abilities. She was able to focus in one point this sound and actually turn it into a massive concussive blast, which ends up making this guy, like, fly through the woods like fucking Team Rocket blasting off. It's insane, and it really shows that she has the potential to end up becoming really powerful. I especially loved the visual of this technique, where it actually looked like there was this, like, chakra bird that appeared right in front of her right before it released this massive blast of destruction. It was pretty damn awesome, I have to admit. But I do have some problems with this episode, and we are going to get to that in the rundown on both of these episodes of Boruto Naruto Next Generations. So, I don't have much to say about the whole child-parent thing. Like, I'm kind of okay with that episode, to be perfectly honest. It actually had some really nice moments, especially, like, some of the lighting and the production value that they used at the end of the episode. If there's one thing that the Boruto anime series loves, it's sunset scenes. And to be perfectly honest, they always manage to do them justice, and it really amplified a lot of the loving moments between father and daughter in that final moment. But it's the next episode that I have a problem with, and it's not so much Namida, it's not so much the other members of the team, it's really Hanabi. She's the character that I had a problem with in this episode, and that's because, I don't know what it is, but all of these bandits that were attacking them and everything, like, they were just chumps. There was nothing special about these guys at all. They didn't have any crazy techniques. They were just the same old generic douchebags that you see in just about every other anime series. They have some unique ninja abilities in the fact that they can use kunai and transform into water. That's about it. But the fact that Hanabi could not take these guys out by herself is really hard to believe, especially considering what we know she is capable of. And the fact that they were able to get the slip on them makes no sense. Hanabi has the Byakugan. She should have been able to know that these guys were sneaking up on them the entire time, and she would have had no trouble in even fighting back against them. They have the frickin' Hyuga techniques and everything. Why aren't they using that? My problem with that moment is that Hanabi could have just wiped the floor with all of these guys, and she never did. It was all an excuse to see Namida go through some training. And this episode, your love of it, the mileage will vary depending on how much you actually like that character. And for me, I'm kind of 50-50 on Namida. I don't like her, I don't love her, it's somewhere in the middle. It's kind of strange. That being said, I see a lot of potential for her character in the future, especially after seeing that final technique. But otherwise, there were just a lot of things in this episode that frankly to me just did not work, and also just how incredibly predictable it was. You could tell from the beginning of the episode, she was just going to give up on the water shit and go back to screaming. That's what's unique about her character. There's no way that they're going to abandon anything like that. It just wasn't as strong as an experience as I was honestly hoping for, and for that, it brought the episode down for me a little bit. Which is why, ultimately, I'm going to give the Namida episode a 3 out of 5. To me, it was just kind of average. But it did feature some great moments, and it is always really great when we get to spend time with characters that don't get a lot of showcasing. And let's face it, that team probably gets the least amount of screen time, except maybe when compared to, say, Denki's team. As for the Sasuke Sarada episode, I actually thought that it was pretty good. I still think that it had some problems, especially in the artwork and animation department, but I actually found myself really enjoying the moments between all these characters, especially Kakashi in this episode. He was just absolutely hilarious. I'm giving that one a 4 out of 5. So that's my thoughts on these episodes right here. I'd love to get all of yours in the comments section below. Tell me what you thought about each of the episodes. Do you see more promise for Namida and her team in the future? Were you annoyed by the fact that Hanabi couldn't take on these fools? Maybe I'm looking at it in a completely different light and I'm just making a mountain out of a molehill. But like I said, I want to hear from you guys. Tell me what you thought in the comment section below. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay down now, baby.